Greetings, dear Earth family. Welcome to Ascension Stories. Today we have Taylor. Taylor is a spiritual life coach, an energy worker, and she specializes in shadow work, ancestral healing, and helping others expand their mindset and gifts. Welcome, Taylor.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. What an honor.
Thank you so much for being here. I really
Oh.
love all the stuff that you do. It reminds me of somebody.
Might
But
be a mere reflection, I don't know.
like seriously, this so usually I like to ask my guests the subject that they want to discuss, and everything that she listed, I was like, yes, this, this, this is just my thing. Yeah, I've been interviewing amazing people, but this was just like really on the money of the things that I like favor.
Heck yeah.
So usually, as you know, I like to jump straight into it and
Mhm.
ask like my guests for their ascension journey. Whatever pops up, however long, however short, it's up to you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So my ascension journey has been kind of a long one with many different layers and chapters. But I would say that my journey on a spiritual path kind of started when I was about 12. So when I was 12, I actually got my first oracle deck, which was a fairy deck by a lady called Doreen Virtue. And I don't really follow any of her teachings now because she's kind of jumped ship a little bit. But I still, that's one of my favorite decks because it was my very first one. So I have to keep it, you know. And I'm very in tune with like the elementals and the fairy realm and nature spirits and things like that. So that was kind of my introduction to the spiritual realm. And I've always just had this inner knowing that I was connected to something more, even just as a child. Like I just knew. And so that knowing carried me throughout my life, especially through the really, really tough times. Like when I was younger, I was diagnosed with, really major chronic depression and anxiety. And, I've been through like sexual trauma and just a bunch of really dark things. But that inner knowing of my connection to something higher is what kept me going. It's what kept me, alive in this plane of existence. So I owe a lot to spirituality and just that connection. It's been really beautiful. But my more recent journey and the way that this has progressed into me becoming, like a spiritual coach and an energy healer actually started after I had, a breakup with a significant other. And I was trying to find myself, and I went and did an ayahuasca retreat I think in 2020 in Costa Rica. And so that opened up a whole bunch of doors for me, like within my spiritual gifts and just clearing out a lot of my shadows to make room to hold more light within my body and to, kind of raise my vibe and help others do the same. And yeah, so that's kind of been the journey. And it's just been this just this journey of unlayering. So, throughout this journey, like, I've discovered that I'm all sorts of things that are not within the norm. Like, I'm not straight. I identify as queer. So gender to me, like, doesn't matter as far as like my attraction to people. I just found out that I was diagnosed with like ADHD at the age of fucking 29. But obviously it's something that I lived with my entire life. And yeah, I'm just very not normal like by society's standards, And yeah, so I embrace that now. It was something that I used to hide and try to fit in with other people a lot, and it just never worked out for me. So as soon as I just started following my own path and listening to my own authentic divine truth, it's led me on this really beautiful path of just connecting with awesome people like yourself and, just this beautiful community that is within this spirituality.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just so familiar, and I love it when people really understand this ascension path, this ascension journey. That you peel those layers so more light can come in. You
Mm-hmm.
take away the debris, whatever words you want to use, that clutter, heaviness, density, and then more light
Yeah.
shines in, and like you become more light. You're,
Yeah.
you're storing more information, which means
Exactly.
our awareness expands, and that's technically how you get to 5D. It's an expanded awareness state. Like, I mean, I usually also say, it has to do with the heart, but I feel like this expanded awareness usually goes to this for the most part for most people, depending on
Mm-hmm.
which way you polarize, I guess. You know, I'm noticing that people, neurodivergent people, and this is completely off track. Neurodivergent people, they seem to to have this interesting sexuality or whatever, or how they view themselves or how they feel themselves. For example, currently I am more straight than ever. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but when I was 16, I came out as bisexual. I was into women. I felt like a boy. I,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, just like, I wasn't very feminine, but I felt, like I said, I felt like a boy. And then when I hit 32 or so, not sure if it was because of my surroundings. I was working as a bartender at a strip club, and there was a
Oh
lot of
my,
a lot
that's so funny. Our journeys are a lot more similar than you might think. I just had to say that. I'm gonna put a pin in it and let you finish, but
It's so funny. Yeah, so like I was surrounded by all these women, basically half naked, and it's like it was really cool in the beginning, and then that working there, I became more straight. I became more into men. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe it was me picking up on the sexual energy. I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden I shifted to I just want men. I think women are still gorgeous,
hmm.
beautiful art pieces, but yeah, it's weird. Like
Yeah.
what is
Well,
this?
and I think like sexuality too, we think sexuality is just this span of we're one thing and that's it. But I think it's like sexuality is fluid because there's been times in my life where I was only attracted to men, right? And that's all I did was men. And then there's been points in my life where I've only been attracted to women. And then there's been points in my life where I've been attracted to both. And then there's been points in my life where I'm like, fuck you both. I don't want anything to do with you guys. So it's just like I think we get so bent on putting ourselves in one box and it diminishes us from being able to explore those other options as they come up. And not to say that, if you're straight, that means, you might not be straight later down the line. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I feel like for a lot of people, there's a spectrum, right? There's just like there's spectrum for like autism, there's a spectrum for sexuality too. And we look at things as being so rigid and black and white, but everything is really just a flow of energy. And so depending on where we're at in life, that flow of energy of our sexuality might differ, from point to point.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, just it's really odd to me, this neurodivergence. I don't know if there's more of really being in touch with who we are. I don't know what it is, but that's what I'm noticing. A lot of
Yeah.
a lot of neurodivergents, they just kind of like, I'm neither and both. It's really interesting to me.
Yeah. So I kind of want to ask you a question because I actually worked in the strip club as well. I was a makeup artist for a long time there, and then I waitressed and bartended and did all sorts of positions there. So what was that experience like for you? Because I like talking to other people that are in now, like in this spiritual setting, who have worked in, a not so spiritual environment,
Yeah,
and what like
spiritual. You know what I mean?
yeah, I mean, exactly. But like, like quote unquote by the, what people consider spiritual. And I think it's interesting because I don't know. So I just want to hear what your experience was like for that.
Um, I mean, I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I just loved as much as like there's a just like the relationship I have with New York. There's a love and hate, even though like I don't like it or hate, nor do I really hate anything or anybody. But
Hmm.
so yeah, it's like my relationship with New York. It's like I love bartending and I hated it, but like but it's just like I got to be around people, read people, just really like because I already was obsessing over understanding humanity when
Hmm.
it wasn't working. That's like basically all I did was just like
Yeah.
research to understand,
Yeah.
and um and then like work, same thing, but just like now they're drinking, so more of their stuff is coming up to be seen. I guess
Right.
they're like not,
Yes.
you know,
Yep. Yep.
they're down. So it's interesting. As far as being in a strip club, it was a dark experience.
Hmm.
I don't regret it whatsoever. I really appreciate it, but it's really hard on me. I drank a lot,
Yeah.
more than ever. I was also, oh, that's what it is. I was going through a breakup. So it was just,
Hmm.
I was just a mess. I was just drinking and just kind of like drinking too much. The next day I'm hungover. And then the next day I go to work, drink too much, hungover. It was,
Yeah. Just like this cycle.
yeah.
Hmm.
I really enjoyed being around all the pretty New York City strippers. I really enjoyed
Yeah. Yeah.
it. If the world was back to normal and we didn't have to wear masks and all that stuff, I'd bartend once a week in a strip club. Like if somebody just was just like, "You want to do this?" I think I would, at least for a
Yeah.
period of time, just because like I don't know. There's like I like pouring liquids.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. I actually right now I still bartend once a week. Um
Yes.
yeah, and it's interesting because some weeks I enjoy it. I like being out of the house because most of my work I'm in my house, researching or working with people, virtually or whatever. But so it's nice to get out of the house and experience like what's going on, like I call it the muggle world, what's going on in the muggle world. And so it's cool because then you learn so much more about people's patterns and, observing like everybody in their like natural habitat, with all liquored up and their shit coming out. And you'd be surprised, like the things that people tell me, like complete strangers, like they will just they'll spill their guts. And I'm like, tell me more, you know? Yeah, it's
Um,
fun. But then there's other times where it feels very, very overwhelming for me just because it's a lot of energy to take in, especially when you're very empathic or,
yes.
spiritually in tuned or neurodivergent for that matter too. It could be a lot, and I notice that I'm extremely drained afterwards.
Yes.
So the next day I have to make sure that I don't have any like work with clients or anything like that to just like pour back into myself and kind of recharge.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. As much as I love it, there was a aspect of like as well.
Mm-hmm.
And really technically not just strip clubs, but yeah, bartending in general. I when was it last week exactly? A little over a week ago, I bartended a venue party thing, so
Mm-hmm.
really easy. But the next day, I was so drained. It was super
Yeah.
drained. I guess just being around all those people and and certain. Well, I'm not even gonna get into that, but so yeah, it's just not a. It's like I enjoy it. It's just hard to be around humans at this point in our history.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah,
the,
it can be. It can be for sure. It's challenging.
so this is why like the virtual stuff, it's so good.
Yeah. You get
Like
to still connect and have awesome conversations, but you're not taking in as much energy as you would in a person-to-person situation. Yeah.
absolutely, we're not technically not in each other's auric field, so I'm not picking things up. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like you can do energetic work from a distance, but I feel like you have as a healer or, whatever energy guide, whatever you want to call yourself, like you have more control over what you let into your own energy. Does
yeah,
that make sense?
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about shadow work.
Yes, yes, yes.
Um,
Um,
your experience.
love me some shadow work.
Oh my God, we were talking about it earlier, actually.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
feeling the feelings, just like
Yes, shadow work, shadow work. Yeah, so that's mainly what the process of what I take my clients through is helping them move through these pieces of them that have been either rejected or locked away, or was just left in the dark, because they were taught that this piece of me, this expression of anger or this expression of jealousy, or you know this gift of mine is frowned upon because in my childhood I was scolded for it, or somebody made fun of me for it, or whatever the case was. And then when you reject that piece of you, it gets swept away into the basement of your foundation of your house. But when you leave them unattended or ignored, they come up and project onto other people, right? So, like if you're ignoring your anger and you're just letting it build up and build up and build up and build up, eventually you're going to have that one trigger that brings it all up to the surface. And I like to use the analogy like, you're at Starbucks getting your coffee and the guy doesn't put whipped cream on your drink and you fucking snap on him, and you're like, where's my whipped cream? And it's like, okay, it's really not that serious. Like the whipped cream's really not that serious, but that's the trigger that sparks it and ignites that whole fire because you've let it build up and ignored it and pushed it down, that it just takes that one little thing, that one little straw to just think, make it all explode. And so when you're leave those bits of your shadow unintegrated and unacknowledged, it creates those messes in our life, right? And that's why it's really important to get to know what's in your, I could like to call it your spiritual closet, what's like hiding in there, what plays in there, because once you're aware of what's actually in there, then you can bring it to the light, integrate it into who you are, because it still is a piece of who you are. But we tend to demonize these pieces of us. And so, it makes life messy when you leave those demonized pieces of you in the dark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's this thing that popped up on my YouTube yesterday, as a matter of fact, and I'll send you a link to this. It's a little long, but like she's been doing this basically what we do technically, but like way longer. So
Mm-hmm.
she just has it like really almost like scientifically, like she'll give
Yeah, laid out.
background for all this stuff. So she's energy and science, so
Yeah.
it's like really.
Yeah.
So I was watching and I was just like, this is so good. I wish more people could see this. It's just so dense, full of information. I'll forward it to you. And as a matter of fact,
Yeah, please do.
it's so good. I'll put it in the show notes as the very last link, actually, if anybody else wants to like really get the full scope of feeling your feelings and everything that has to do with getting better.
Yeah.
If anybody's struggling, they're like, fuck, I don't know. If you have something that's unhealed, there's a reason it's unhealed. And she goes into all that stuff, and I was like, I love her. Sue something. Dr. Sue something. Oh, I'll put it in the show notes. So
Yeah, please do.
next thing I want to talk about is ancestral healing. I love this topic.
Yes, yes, yes. So that's another bit that I kind of take, and I feel like this is a part of shadow work. So shadow work is such a broad topic. It's such a broad subject. It's almost like this umbrella term for a lot of little like other segments underneath it, right? And so ancestral healing is a form of shadow work. And I take my clients through some of this as well, where we kind of dig into their patterns, right? So we start with their own patterns, and then we look at their upbringing, like how their relationship with their parents were, how the relationship with their grandparents were, their aunts and uncles and their brothers and sisters, and go and look at these different relationships down their line to figure out where the root of this pattern comes from. And a lot of times, like these patterns that we have within our lives that we express, half the time they're not even ours, right? Because the body stores trauma. So when a traumatic event occurs, and the mind can't handle it, or it's too much for it to process at that time, it gets stored into the body. And so when it gets stored into the body, it can get stored into like your muscles, your tissues, whatever, your blood, whatever organs, yep. And to be dealt with at a later time. But if the person that experienced the trauma never deals with that, that trauma gets imprinted and affects the way that your genes actually express themselves. And so those patterns, like when somebody says, oh, depression is hereditary, right? Well, why is that hereditary? Is it because there's a specific gene, or is it because the epigenetics is actually telling it to express that gene, right? Because with ancestral trauma and epigenetics, you can actually change the way that your genes express themselves. And when you learn to heal those root causes and those root patterns, you can, even if you have that gene in your system to express depression, you can affect the epigenetic part to make sure that it doesn't express it, right? And so that's why some of this healing is so important, because it doesn't only heal you, it also heals your whole entire ancestral line, because healing isn't linear. So healing, I mean, just like time's a man-made construct, and it's something that is just for this 3D reality of ours. And so when we can heal something within ourselves, it heals within, you know, our past lives, but also the lives within our ancestral line. So it can heal patterns within your mother, within your father, within your grandmother, within, you know, your great grandmother. It can go back, and then it can also go forward too. So down to your children. So when you start healing patterns within yourself, you know, it lessens the effect that it's going to have on your own children and their children, and, you know, everybody to come before. And so that's why healing yourself is so damn important, because it influences so much, so many different people in your lives. And it's not just for you, you know, yeah, for it is for you, but it also has this massive ripple effect outwards, you know.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. It's kind of good to know that finally this stuff can be cleared. I mean, all those generations of them just like, do do do. Here's a rug. Issues? Sweep it under the rug.
Yep.
Decades, decades, generations. Do do do. Here we are. We're like, oh fuck. It's a big
Yeah.
pot.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is too is like, you know, and it's not our job to clear everything this lifetime, right? Because that's a big job to take on. You know, we can do as much as we can, but I also feel like too, for me personally as a healer, like I put pressure on myself to I have to heal everything this lifetime, you know? I'm like, no, it's fine. Like heal what you can in this lifetime, do what you can. Don't overextend yourself and, you know, make yourself miserable doing it, but, you know, put in the work. You
Yeah,
know, it's gonna help people along the way too.
absolutely. Yeah, because
Yeah.
we're like a drop in the ocean, you know, with the ripples. Absolutely,
Yeah.
the ripples. Us being better or healed or not as horrible or whatever, not as
Yeah.
fun, definitely affects everybody around us. So, a while ago, I was telling somebody about like me having a session with myself where I
Mhm.
was kind of like being in certain, I don't remember where the feeling was. Maybe it was like in my solar plexus. I don't remember exactly where, but it was just I was there for like hours.
Mhm.
Um and so yeah, I was telling somebody about this and she was like, what? Like healing is not supposed to be that long, but I think she's just kind of seeing it like from my, I guess from how I'm observing it, she's seeing
Mhm.
it as, you know, like you go into a session, you know, you go through your stuff, you know, because technically healing is not that long. But what I feel like where what I'm working with is I feel like I'm just like not doing a layer. I'm doing like mountains worth of fucking layers.
Mhm.
That session, yeah, I'm there for 2 hours, 3 hours, however long I'm there. But like, how many years worth of patterns am I? Have
Clearing. Yeah.
you ever had
Yeah.
like really long, insanely long sessions of like feeling the energy blocks or whatever comes up?
Yeah. Yeah, I've had some pretty, at least for myself, I don't ever take my clients through that long of sessions just because
You're not
it's a
supposed to.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for myself, yeah, I have done, you know, I don't think I've ever gone over 3 hours at a time just because it takes a lot out of you. But yeah, I've definitely had some pretty intense ones when I've done like a 2 hour session or, you know, 3 hour session.
Just like
And
putting one thing, and I'm just like, holy shit, there's a lot. What's going on?
yeah, yeah, it's a lot. And one of the things that I've actually found really helpful in healing and drudging up some of those patterns. So I like to combine a little bit of psychology with the spiritual. So I like that, kind of like what you said before with that lady. Like I like having that the intellectual bit with the energetic, right? And I also like to incorporate embodiment too, because I feel like in order to really heal, you need to heal on all three of those levels. Like the energy part is important, but so is the intellect and the body, because it's all one, especially on this plane of existence. We exist in this physical 3D space, so we have to take care of all of our, bits and pieces of us. So one of the processes that I use is something called hemi-syncing. And basically what it is when you think of like this is more for like processing trauma, but so I'll take a client through and there's like a little ball on the screen and they follow it with their eyes. And at the same time, I'm playing music that evokes that memory, that certain memory that triggers that memory or those certain feelings, because music is a really big gateway to bridging the intellect, the 3D, and the spiritual. And so it's a really powerful tool in healing that I use along with, the hemi-syncing. And so basically, what this ball does when you watch it and you think of the memory and you have the music playing in the background, it brings up that memory as if you're there, right, in your head, and you're replaying it, you're feeling it, because trauma is basically just unprocessed, like it's not a fully processed memory, it's incomplete. And so what this does is it helps complete the memory. It helps you to see the story from maybe another perspective, or just those emotions that haven't been fully felt, brings them up so you can fully feel them in a safe environment. And so in doing this with this combination, and then they're watching it, listening to music, processing the memory, and then I'm on the other side pulling out the energy behind it and manipulating the energy and working through it. And so it's this like really intense process of the intellect, the mind, the body, everything. And so those are the sessions that are like I've done that on myself a few times, and that's one of the ones where I did more of like a 2 hour long one, which it was like, oh, like I felt like I undid like a lifetime of like one pattern, and I was like, fuck, that was a lot. And then when you do like those longer energy sessions or those longer workings on yourself, like you just feel exhausted because it's a lot of work. It's a
Yeah.
lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also great afterwards, but like afterwards, like as in after you rested, because yeah, you get tired afterwards. Yeah, we're metabolizing those frozen, right? Frozen in time.
Yeah.
My understanding is the brain kind of takes a snapshot of what's going
Hmm.
on, and
Yep.
yeah, it just kind of like stores, and it develops in many ways. Pain,
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
in like lack of balance. It could be hormonal imbalances. It could be so many things, emotional,
Yeah.
so just all kinds of things. I mean, down to physical illnesses. This
Mm-hmm.
that
100%.
the
Yeah, and that's one thing too with to kind of circle back to the generational trauma. Sometimes generational trauma presents itself as these illnesses passed down from generation to generation too, like autoimmune disorders, or if like diabetes or heart disease runs in your family, that is a form of generational trauma that's presenting itself in the physical form. And so when I do ancestral trauma, or some of that like ancestral kind of trauma healing, I have them create a map of their family history, not only just the traumas, but also like their physical ailments, because the physical ailments have a spiritual and an energetic cause, right? And what I like to say is the physical ailments or the disease is actually just a symptom of a deeper emotional cause.
I
Yeah.
definitely still have. I mean, I've done years worth of work, but I still have physical stuff left over, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
because like it's just like at some point, it's like enough is enough. But
Right. Yeah.
I think my line was just really heavy. A lot
Yeah, heavy.
of violence, a lot of anger, a lot of abuse, a lot of.
Yeah.
Holy crap. So it's all right. It's all right. More work.
Yeah. Right. You could only do so much. You're only one person.
God. I mean, I'm leaps and bounds from where I used to be. I used to be in so much pain on all the levels. I mean, I definitely,
Yeah.
it wasn't just my physical body. It was definitely, I had extreme depression, anxiety, definitely emotional instability.
Hmm.
Like at some point, my knees swell up, and I'm not sure exactly what the issue with that is per se. I mean,
Hmm.
I have theories, whatever, but yeah, like I couldn't like walk or stand for long periods of time. It was like really, really hard.
Yeah.
I cleared out. Eventually, then I developed stuff on the left side of my body, like really
Hmm.
horrible pain that kind of would travel. So it's not an actual like this is like this happened here, just like physically.
Right.
It's just like it's traveling.
Yeah.
Like be pain in my foot, and it'll be pain here, and then it'll be pain in my like just all along the left side. Most of it is gone, so
Hmm.
there's just a little left.
Yeah.
We can work together.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all like peeling back the layers, man, you know? I mean, I still like, I, so it's interesting. Okay. And I'm going to ask you this too, if it's like similar for you. So when I do energy work on other people or just like on myself, some of like the way that energy moves through me, because I like when I do energy work, I can feel what's in them in my body. And so for me, when stuff is clearing out, it's really gross, but like I'll get like a shit ton of phlegm and I just have to like go cough it out, or like all this congestion that just like manifests like in my own body that I'm taking on, that I have to just like get it out. Do you ever like have anything like that when you're doing work for other people?
Um, I think on a subconscious level, I mean it's kind of conscious, honestly. It's less conscious than subconscious, but I think I block that out. I think it's
Okay, yeah.
a boundary that I have up because I don't want to experience any of their stuff. And
Yeah.
I would even like here and there say it in my mind, what's mine is mine, what's theirs is theirs, because
Yeah.
I have enough stuff of my own.
Right.
I just don't want to, because what if it like stays in my body? I don't want to. So
Yeah.
so no, not really. Not at least not on a conscious level. Maybe I do pick up stuff that I'm just not aware of. And plus again, I have
Hmm.
still leftover issues. Maybe I just
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it's my stuff, and meanwhile it could be somebody else's. Who
It
knows?
could be someone else's. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
You're
you
out.
know, I have boundaries around people too, but there's just this because I'm such a clairsentient being, I feel like one of my purposes is to like physically transmute some of, I don't know how to explain it. It's like to be a channel for some of the stuff that people can't actually process themselves. Does that make sense? Like, so like
Hmm.
my theory is if it wasn't mine to process, it wouldn't come to me.
Right.
So I only take on things that I'm capable of processing, and only if they want me to process it. Otherwise I don't try to process anybody's things. I don't intentionally process anybody's things for them, because I feel like that's your job. You
That's
do
how
the
we
work,
feel, honestly.
and that's how you grow, and that's how you whatever. But there are some instances where um, I do feel like there's certain things that come up for me personally, because it triggers some of my own inner things, because it's a reflection of some of the stuff that I have to work in within myself as well. So I'll kind of give you an example. So I actually, it's interesting because when I go into some kind of an energetic agreement to work with somebody, whether it's through a podcast or whether it's a client that's going to be coming on, I could feel their energy before they even approach me. So I don't necessarily know who it is that's approaching me, but I know because their concern or whatever it is approaches me first. And so usually it approaches me in that way because it's something that I also need to reflect on. So I was going on a podcast with somebody else, and it was interesting because all of a sudden the word just like jealousy came up, and it was like I saw it in my mind's eye in like big bubble letters, and I was like, "What is this?" I was like, that's not mine. And so I was like trying to figure out where it was coming from. But then it was a reflection for me to look back on my past where I was storing and ignoring my own uh, jealousy, in the past, in past relationships or whatever it was. Because in the past, I always tried to like play the cool girl and just like go with the flow and, just be like that person. But deep down, there was times where like I let shit slide that I shouldn't have let slide and I was fucking jealous. And I just didn't acknowledge it because I'm like, no, I'm not allowed to be jealous because that means you're a crazy bitch. This means X, Y, or Z about you. And so I was like, I'm not a crazy bitch, so I can't be jealous. And so her jealousy coming through made me reflect on my own jealousy patterns in the past, and some of those that were repressed for years and years and years just started like bubbling up to the surface. It's like, all right, well, now you have to feel these so then this pattern of jealousy doesn't continue, in the future. And so there's this like interesting connection between the issues that come to me through other people and my own. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think uh, like the method that I use, I mostly use
Mm-hmm.
the QHHT method. That's usually what I work with mostly.
Yeah.
Actually,
Uh-huh.
mostly. So it's kind of like they are in their own trance and it literally living it out. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like cool. I don't have to take it on.
Yeah, yeah.
So like no, no. Plus, I feel like I already do that on a regular basis anyway. I feel like
Mhm.
certain people, especially neurodivergents, we're already like crystals or whatever. We're already kind of taking stuff to be transmuted. So I feel like I'm already doing that on
Mhm.
a regular basis as it is. So just like, and it's not conscious. So like maybe
Yeah,
I'm even doing it with clients, perhaps. I just know like
yeah.
my intention is yours. It's yours. Keep it. You
Yep.
transmute it yourself,
Yep.
and I'll do
Yep.
my thing here, and I'm just so like no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, to each their own. I just
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like whatever works better for you.
I
That's your
remember
method.
fairly recently somebody was asking me some kind of questions. I don't remember what it was exactly, but basically something to do with like accessing like accessing like information. I'm like I don't go into people's energy fields and access their stuff. I'm sorry, that's just my boundary. Like
Yeah.
like I'm here to help you ex- uh experience and transmute root uh um your root pain or your root issues.
Yeah.
I can't
That's a
go in.
yeah, that's a boundary I have too. I will not go into somebody else's, like if a client comes to me, I will help them with their stuff, but I will not go looking into somebody else's energy or somebody else's information that did not explicitly give me the consent to do so, because I feel like that's a boundary of ethics too. Like there's a lot of boundaries you have to have when doing this kind of work, because there are like some stuff that can be crossed, and it's really important to like have those boundaries to be ethical and to really best serve the client at hand, and not because it's like they didn't pay me to work on them. I'm working on you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's talk about plant medicine.
Yay.
I'm just
Yes.
so into plant medicine because, just different methods. They're technically all the same thing, whether it's, like a healing session with
Hmm.
individuals like ourselves, or, going in and then and drinking something that will alter your chemistry that can also lay out issues that you need to. Here's the thing, I know like just in case people don't know,
Hmm.
that it's not that the plant medicine is healing you per se. It's more so it's it's bringing you to that place for you to deal with your issues. Some people feel like, oh wait, I'm doing plant medicine, I'm healing myself. Yeah, but are you feeling the feelings?
Yes.
That's where
Yes.
that's what it's about.
Thank you for
What
saying
about
that. Thank you for saying that, because that's one thing that is so fucking important that nobody talks about with plant medicine and psychedelics and things, because there's a lot of people that will just keep doing them and doing them and doing them and doing
I'm
them.
getting
But
better?
that's actually a way of spiritually you're bypassing. that's a way of bypassing your issues. Because unless plant medicine only works, yeah, it only works if you are willing to do the work afterwards and if you're willing to integrate it into your life. It's like, okay, great, you did mushrooms or you did ayahuasca or you did LSD or whatever, it is that you wanted to do. And you learned these amazing lessons and you saw these crazy visuals, but how are you bringing that into your life? How are you implementing what you learned into your day-to-day life and making those changes, right? How are you bringing that and embodying the lesson instead of just talking about it?
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
what's your experience with plant medicine like?
Yeah, so plant medicine. It's been intense. So, um I've done mushrooms a couple of times. Not too much, but my main one was my ayahuasca experience. So I went on an ayahuasca retreat, did 2 nights of ayahuasca, 1 night of Wachuma, which is San Pedro from the Wachuma cactus, and so that was life altering. That's actually what put me on my path where I'm at now, And so that whole I don't know how much you want to get into that or how many details you want, but
Whatever you want to talk about, whatever we could go on. Whatever you.
yeah, so yeah, it definitely brought a lot to the surface for me. And kind of going into that bit that we were just talking about, like it brings everything to the surface for you to deal with it, right? And so after having that experience, I'm like, well, I can't go back home and keep doing all the same things that I've been doing after having this insanely mind-blowing experience, because that would just be a disservice to this whole thing. And so when I went home, there were things that I slowly implemented, slowly changed, but then there were certain things that I was resistant to. And as soon as I was resistant to those things, Mother Ayahuasca came in and fucking kicked my ass. And she was like, oh yeah, you want to be resistant? I'm going to push you. Even though, like, the thing with ayahuasca is when you go into that agreement to work with her spirit, with her plant essence, yeah, you're doing it for 2 nights, but she is working with you before that, after that. Like, she worked with me for a full year after I had my ayahuasca experience, like integrating and showing up as lessons. And that's actually what this snake tattoo here is for my ayahuasca journey. I don't know if you could see it, but
I know somebody
um,
also, her and her boyfriend, they do ayahuasca together, and they actually
uh,
both got the
the
same tattoo
snakes.
basically, and so they could
Yeah.
connect like a kundalini situation.
Yeah, yeah. And that's one of the things is the first this kind of just represents like my fear and just the shedding and the transformation and the death and rebirth cycle for me. Um, but the first night that I did ayahuasca, the first thing that I saw was like these like green fractal patterns, and I was like, "Oh, this is nice." And all of a sudden, it was just like this pile of black snakes that just rained down on me, and I was like, "Ah!" Like, what is this? And so that just represented like all the fears that I was supposed to transmute and work through, and because I dealt with extreme anxiety, like to the point where I was like hospitalized and just afraid of everything, like afraid to speak up, afraid to be myself, afraid of, you know, just everything. Like I was just living in that fear vibration. And so that was like my main thing that I went there for. And I was fucking terrified going there. Like I was like, what if I die? What if this happens? What if this happens? And the whole time, like on the way there, I'm just like shaking because I'm like, well, this is it. This is the way I go. Just like that negative like narrative. And as soon as I got there, I'm like, you know what? I'm scared, but I'm gonna fucking do it anyways. And that's the thing with fear is like sometimes you just have to get to that point where like, yeah, everybody's scared of things, but you have to look at it and be like, okay, I'm scared, but I know this is for my highest, greatest good, so I'm gonna fucking go for it anyways. I'm gonna do this scared. And I think when you learn to just do things scared and do things anyways, it teaches you, it re regulates your nervous system to be like, look, you did this thing that you were terrified of, but you're still here. You're still safe. You're still standing and you're even better than ever now for doing it. And so the more that you do that and go outside of your comfort zone and do those experiences that scare the piss out of you, in a safe way, the more growth you experience and the more you expand and the more, you just bring into your world. And so that was like one of my biggest lessons from ayahuasca was just being um, being in that sorry, being in that vibration and transmuting that.
Um, yeah, courage.
Yeah,
You just do it anyway. That's all. Same for me. I was scared of everything. I was horrified of people, which is kind of ironic that I bartended, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
terrified of people. And so the reason, I mean, I'm just like I do things anyway. Like, just because you have to, you just
you
have to
have to. Yeah, you can't be scared of everything, and
lock
what are you
yourself
gonna live on? Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
in.
yep.
So yeah, and after a while, I mean, I was still scared of people talking to me years down the line. And
Yeah.
eventually kind of just, I guess, what's the word? Exposure therapy is what I consider it now.
Uh-huh.
I do
Yep.
I do basically technically anything and everything as long as I'm interested, no matter how like scary it could be. Just show up. That's how I do everything. I just show up.
Yeah. You have to. You have to just show up. And I think that's the thing is like when you keep showing up and you keep showing yourself that you can show up, it just it changes everything.
So yeah, let me see. Is there anything else we could cover in plant medicine? Which one is your favorite?
Can you repeat that real quick?
Yeah, which plant medicine is your favorite?
um so far my like from my experience ayahuasca has been my favorite journey with plant medicine just because of the connection that I've had with her afterwards. Like even now, like when I feel like I need to get into like the vibe of things or in the right headspace, I'll go on YouTube and look up they're called Icaros. So it's like the ayahuasca medicine songs that they sing like during the ceremonies and stuff. And so I'll go and I'll listen to those and it almost like it reactivates the medicine within me. And not like where I see things or anything, but it just like it's almost like a remembrance of like the lessons and things. Does that make sense?
You feel it clear.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's what it is for me. I remember I've only had two ayahuasca experiences, and the last one, there was somebody that was playing some kind of string instrument. I forget what it was. I don't think it was a guitar. I don't know. Ukulele. I have no idea. I don't remember. But anyway, there was some kind of notes that he was playing, and I just remember just kind of like, especially. I mean, after I felt it as well, but like especially like uh during the ceremony, and it just like played in my heart, and it's just so.
Yes. It was just yeah. The music that they play like during the ceremony is just so like oh, it just like fills your heart with like love and joy and you're just like I want to live here forever. Like in this moment of this music.
Yeah, and this brings me to there's people out there, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is people be careful who your shamans are, you know um
Yes.
they're
Yes.
kind people, because kind people is the kind of people that you want to work with, not somebody that just like, I understand we all need to make money, I get that, but
Right.
if you're not a kind person, as in like, I'm gonna make sure you're okay after the ceremony. I feel like
Yeah.
certain medicines, you should, the shaman should check up on the individuals afterwards. That's just my opinion, especially if
Yeah, and 100% because there's you have to really know who you're working with because this is such like an intimate and personal and intense experience. Like you don't want just anybody working with your energy while you're in this like vulnerable, open, raw state, you know.
yeah,
It's a really important to have really good guides when you're doing something like that.
yeah.
Really important.
And I heard some couple of stories this year of um I don't even know if I should, because I'm not trying to, like, I hate scaring people, but I also don't like the fact that I'm always trying to protect humanity. And I think that's a disservice as well.
Right.
I guess it's okay to talk about it. There were a couple of different times, different shamans, male shamans. Just I don't like throwing men under the bus because I don't like what has happened the last 2 years. That men being attacked for just being men. They're just like
Mm-hmm.
they're just born men. Like chill. Like
Yeah.
they're not bad because they're men. Like I just don't like that. So yeah, that's why there's certain topics I try to talk about. But anyway, let me go ahead and talk about it anyway. So yeah, there were two different times, two different individuals, you know, women that were taken advantage of by the shamans.
Mm.
Crazy to me because it's this work that's just like you don't do that.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
It's not like it's a strip club or a dance club or whatever where just like like not that it's okay anywhere, but this is just like
Right.
vulnerable place. Just
Yeah. And it's like that's the place where you would least expect something like that to happen. But it happens all the time.
see the
And
shit
it,
like that. I'm just like, what the fuck, Earth? Not Earth itself,
yeah.
humanity. I guess. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Look.
It's wild. Yeah, and there's things where like I've seen, like different like gurus or different, whatever the thing is, and they take advantage of people, and you know, there's just been like a couple documentaries that I've watched, of just those types of things, and I feel like it's just so wrong to prey on people that are coming to you to heal, and a lot of times people are coming because they're healing from sexual trauma, or they're healing from these like really traumatic things, and then you're going to go ahead and inflict more like while they're on this path of healing. Like that is, it's just so twisted. I don't get it. It's twisted.
It's
It's
crazy.
twisted, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, I understand that we live on this planet and this polarity thing exists. Like, I get it. I just like, ugh, it's just like certain things need to be sacred, but I guess like nothing's left.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is okay.
Right.
Crazy, but on the other side of that, I do believe, and I'm pretty sure you believe, that we are making that change as a collective and we're coming back up. Well,
Exactly. Exactly. And the more that people, bring awareness to things like this too, the less that it has a chance of happening, because it's like, and that's why this work's so important too, because it's like when you don't heal certain things within yourself, you project things and do fucked up things. Maybe not to that extent, but you know, people that are hurting, that have been through trauma, that don't deal with it, they go ahead and do fucked up things to other people. It's like hurt people, that saying, hurt people hurt people. And people don't just do shitty things for no reason, which doesn't make them right. It doesn't give them any, credibility to do what they do, but it does give you a bit of perspective that if you let your traumas go undealt with and unacknowledged, they do spill out in other forms. And sometimes it's those extreme cases and extreme forms like that too.
yeah, for sure. Whew. Okay, so let's talk about, I know, heavy. One of my favorite subjects, and it's funny for me. The word itself triggers people, depending
Mm-hmm.
on the person. That's a whole subject in itself, the whole triggering. But so it's just a word, everybody. So the word is starseed. So people are just like, oh, like whatever. Let's not even go into that. I love
Yeah.
starseeds. We briefly kind of talked about this, being neurodivergent. I don't think I expressed to you that my opinion is that neurodivergence, whether autistics, ADHD, ADD, OCD, I guess dyslexia, whatever else kind of goes under the umbrella of neurodivergence, in my opinion, these are starseeds. We are just differently differently wired humans with different energy system. Our nervous system is wired differently, and we're here to bust shit up because it doesn't work. Humanity's been like, okay, okay, and we're like, it's not okay, it hurts, fuck you, no.
Yes, 100%, 100%. So I kind of want to touch on this because I agree fully. So on my TikTok, I actually posted a video about like star seeds and like symptoms of star seeds, and I got a lot of comments underneath the thing that said, like, no, you're just describing symptoms of ADHD or autism, or this is dangerous information to post because people are going to think they're just aliens and they're not going to go get help. I'm like, well, if that's the way you take it, that's your own fault, because that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is there's a link between these things. So if you're experiencing these symptoms, it's probably because you're a starseed, but because you're a starseed doesn't mean you don't have those other things, right? People always think because you're this, it means it negates everything else, right? But being a starseed encompasses all of that. It's like an explanation for why we're different. You know what I mean? It's supposed to bring comfort rather than make you feel more alienated. And so if it makes you feel more alienated, well, that you need to do some shadow work on that. Why does that make you feel like that? Why does the word starseed trigger you so much? What about it makes you angry? Right?
Just
And yeah, it's literally a word, and if it makes you angry, you're the one giving it that power to make you angry. And so you need to dive into that, and that's your shit, right? And so um yeah, so I don't know. I really resonate with Starseed, and just, the whole thing of neurodivergence just being this just wired differently, and it's because they come from different star systems. You know what I mean? They're not from, maybe they've had lives here, but their soul is not origin of Earth. And it's for a reason. We signed up to come here to, like you said, bust it up, change things up, because this matrix, yeah, this matrix that we're living in this 3D Earth, it's on its way out. There's so much shit coming to the surface that with these things, like wars and pandemics and whatever the case is, they're all coming to the surface and it looks shitty, but this is the crumbling of the matrix. It's the crumbling of this 3D reality that we've been playing in for so long, and it's being brought to the surface so it can be healed, to be fixed, to be rebuilt. It's like the tower moment for I don't know if well, I see the star actually in your, I just looked, the star, but it's basically like right now this is the tower moment of the planet, right? Like everything is crumbling and coming down and falling, yes. And but what comes after the tower moment, right? It's you have to have your rebirth, and you have to, then you start to rebuild, and then there's the star and you have all these hopes. And it's like, yeah, we might be in this shitty spot now, but if you look ahead, there's so much more to complete this circle, right? Until you get to what's the last one? Is it the world? I think in the major arcana is the world, right?
I don't I don't remember. I feel like that's the case, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it's the world. So yeah, once you get to the world, then it's just like this circle of completion. But right now, we're in the tower. So, it's gonna feel shitty, and there's gonna be a lot of shit coming up, but it's for the greatest good of everybody.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
the amount of star seeds coming in, it's been increasing, 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 increasing.
Yep.
They're projecting it to be 1 and 2, you know, soon-ish. Not like soon, but
Yeah.
um, yeah. I mean, where are these souls supposed to be coming from? I mean, Earth only has a certain amount of souls. Where do people expect these souls to come from? So
Right. Yeah, because our population has grown immensely, compared to where it was, 100 years ago. And so it's like, yeah, exactly. Where are these other souls coming from? They have to come from other places.
logically,
Because you can't create, you can't destroy energy or create new energy. It's like you have to pull it from somewhere else.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, whew, yeah. I really did. I struggled so much growing up. This world did not fucking make sense to me at all. And eventually, like after obsessively studying the patterns of humanity, like so into patterns, surprise, like
Yeah.
spectrum, neurodivergent, being obsessed with patterns. all about it. Yeah, and I had to work through a lot of it to kind of like get to a point where just like, okay, I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
And like I spent most of my life being really upset that I was here, or just like this doesn't feel like home. I don't like it. Like
Mm-hmm.
excuse me.
Take me back, please. Take me back how I came in.
Yeah, eventually I just like, oh no, okay, I understand. I get it. I came here to help. That's fine. And you know what's interesting? Like you like again observing, right? Everything and anything when it comes to us humans and everything to do with us humans. So like just so much stuff. You know how certain autistics they walk on their tippy toes?
Mm-hmm.
And a kind of random subject, but like so anyway, so I'm thinking, let's say there's, you know, wherever they're from, their structure is that they walk on, you know, on
Their
the
toes.
like, or you know, more so like it's not exactly tippy toes, but like we call it tippy toes, but you know, like the first part, like animals do,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
birds do, right? Yeah, like all the animals do. So it's like I'm just like, ah, I see you. You're not used
Yeah.
to your body. It's interesting to me. Like,
Yeah, no, 100%. It's like you're not used to, because I feel like a lot of neurodivergent people feel uncomfortable in their bodies. And I think that comes from that because it's like you don't feel safe in this form that you're in because this isn't what you're used to. So it's like people have to, alter the way that they're doing things because they're not used to it. So I really like that you brought that up because I've noticed that in certain people too, where it's like they do something that seems very like I don't want to say it's like
outer worldly.
yes, yes, that's exactly the word that I was looking for. I was like, what's the word? Because I didn't want to say like inhuman, but it was like otherworldly, like just not from here, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to like talk about other stuff when it comes to autism. I love this subject. I've never talked about it so far on this particular podcast. It's like my biggest passion. I don't know that you but like it's my biggest passion.
Yeah.
Bring awareness to bring destigmatization to this subject because you know like for example it's just such a broad subject, and I feel like whenever I talk about it, I only cover such a small fraction, and I could almost hear people like, "But what about this?" But it's just like, "Oh, I just didn't talk about that. I don't know." Like,
Yeah. It's like I'll talk about that next time. You know?
ask me. We could talk about it. I don't know, but whatever pops into my mind. Like for example, right now, so I like to talk about so when it comes to autism, my understanding is that there's people that are just wired differently, and then there's
Mhm.
people that are wired differently, and they have an extra load of what's the word? Things that their bodies can't handle, aka I'm gonna say poison. For example,
Mhm.
the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat aren't exactly
Right.
pristine. Uh,
Right.
some individuals are so sensitive, like for example, neurodivergent, they're so sensitive that this stuff technically is poisoning them. So what we
Mhm.
call autism is when there's an obvious issue, and some it doesn't. It's not always. Again, it's just such a broad subject. There's so many different factors, but like
Yeah.
try my best to talk about it. A lot of the time, when you see issues, when you see disconnect, when there's lack of eye contact, there's so many reasons for why the eye contact, for example. But one of the things is, and here's how I describe it to people: imagine you're poisoned or have stomach poisoning or even the flu. You feel so shitty, yet people are like, "Why aren't you social? Why aren't you social?"
Yes.
And I'm just like,
Yes.
this person is fucking poisoned. And there's such a big array of what could be wrong with them: physical issues, disconnect, mental disconnect, emotional disconnect. Like I can't, like if I have the flu, so me socializing is not on the list. Me making eye contact with you, not on the fucking list. And when it comes to eye contact, again, so many different layers. One of them is sometimes certain people are not safe to have eye contact with.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not always the issue. There's so many
Right.
it could be also just usually not being safe around people, so your habit is not to make eye contact. It's just so broad. um so when it comes to people that are, let's say, autistic, but you know they're not considered autistic, we're basically neurodivergent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when they are not obviously autistic, how I see it is that they're considered technically, they're not autistic because there's nothing obviously wrong, but there's definitely something. So they're
Mm-hmm.
considered eccentric.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they're just wired differently and they're not poisoned. I think the
Mm-hmm.
label is usually for the people that are either poisoned or extremely, very, like, obviously, like, overly, something's very, very different about,
Yeah.
about you. I could go on and on. I just have
I
all
really,
these
yeah, I really like that perspective of I've actually never thought about it like that, that like the analogy of like being poisoned that you used. Um, because it's like, yeah, when somebody has the flu, you don't expect them to operate on 100. You don't expect them to meet the same standards as, when somebody is like 100%, you know, at their optimal peak. So what do you think? Do you think it's mostly just like the air, like food, water, or is it just like a combination of things that like creates that toxic like poisoning for people?
I feel like it's a large array, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the biggest culprit, you know, this is just an opinion, and I mean, there's other people that express this understanding as well. I feel like it's an over toxicity of mercury in the system, and a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times it's when you're a child. There's mercury that's between your left and right hemisphere, and hence the difficulty, kind of the hemispheres communicating. So you find other ways to communicate. So hence, kind of losing that ability to, like, be verbal theory.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, eventually your brain adjusts and starts to be able to, or it rewires, like, to kind of be able to communicate between the hemispheres better. So
Yeah.
eventually you're able to talk, perhaps, depending on the individual and level of toxicity. And really, because also depends on their soul and where they come from. What if,
Right.
language is just not their thing wherever they come from? So just like,
Yeah.
people could try to teach you language all they want. To just like they're just like vibes, man. I read vibes.
Yeah.
What you want.
Yeah. And it's actually interesting that you bring that up because that's one of the things that I've had to develop within myself is I feel like I have a lot to say and my brain is like running on like 1,000 all the time and I have so much information and wisdom, but I can't always articulate um, what it is that I'm experiencing that I want to communicate. Does that make sense? And so like I actually like going on podcasts and creating videos on Instagram and things like that has actually helped me develop that skill more because I remember like the first podcast I went on I was just like I have things that I want to say but I don't know how to like word them. And so I think like this medium has helped me like open up that communication, like my throat chakra, and just being able to communicate in this way because I know where my soul comes from, like the planet, and their mode of communication was just more through feeling. It was more through like the vibrations and almost like telepathic communication. And so when I have to try to articulate some of the things that I'm trying to say, it doesn't always come out the way that they're in my head or how I feel.
I feel you. I feel you so much. It took me years to be able to express myself. Plus, I mean, where I came from, like the genetic line, that just wasn't supported. To self-expression wasn't now. That was also
Yeah.
definitely a thing that was a big part of it. But
Hmm.
it took me into my. I feel like I started to be able to kind of come communicate myself in my early 30s.
Mm-hmm.
It took me that long. And by the way, for those
Yeah.
who don't know, I am autistic. I had a lot of work that I needed to go through, a lot of that's partially why I was so obsessed with studying the human condition to understand what is going on,
Yeah.
as well as clear my system out of toxins, because I definitely was kind of like for example, if I was to have dairy right now, it does something to my system. Like my system shuts down,
Mm-hmm.
um, where I I can interact with my world,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not connected.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain. It's like I kind of go on even a lower dimension or heavier dimension where
Mm-hmm.
it's just difficult. I used to experience pain. I don't experience pain anymore per se, not as much, a little bit, because it doesn't happen often that I have dairy by mistake. Maybe the smallest amount. Of it.
Right.
I feel like this is just a theory. I don't know, but I feel like, and usually my intuition is right, but I don't know. Um, I feel like it messes or whatever with my glial cells, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what goes on, and I feel like it just the whole process from when I first have the dairy by mistake to when I finally feel close to myself takes a month. So it's just like
Wow.
yeah, so it's like
Wow.
seriously. So that's why I can understand like if people just like oh why they're not social poke, and I'm just like yeah, you don't know how they feel, how they're disconnected, like what's going on. I
Yeah.
state like I can feel like even though I can look you in the eye, I don't want to look you in the eye.
Yeah.
It's too much. It's too much to handle. Um, and just everything's heavy and kind of like life just hurts. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
technically me being poisoned. That's why I understand that state. Like,
That makes sense. That makes complete sense to me.
don't know what actually goes on during the thing, but these are just my theories. I don't know who knows.
Yeah.
My God. So yeah, I'm looking forward to there being more understanding on this subject, and
Mm-hmm.
and how people you were saying earlier, people were like, oh, you're bringing misinformation, and then people won't get help. What help?
Yeah. Are they getting help now? Like
I
I
mean,
feel like
so like people talking about drugs,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
and I'm just
Yeah.
like, really, chemicals? You think that's the thing? It's not
Yeah.
for example, going putting your feet on the ground, getting those electrons, and again
Mm-hmm.
getting rid of like the free radicals. Oh, like for those that have not watched the movie documentary called The Earthing Movie, you can find it on YouTube. You have to watch it. They actually do mention if you guys have not watched it, if you haven't seen it, they mention autism and how it completely like 180 the experience of being able to sit in the classroom and pay attention. Like they're
Yeah.
like they are developing classrooms where there's I guess grounding mats or whatever they're doing where there's grounding going on in the room. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So
That's
there's
amazing.
so many things. Grounding, for example, if you have like autism or ADHD, grounding.
So helpful. So helpful. Because it gets you out of your headspace, out of that wandering, like untethered space and anchors you into this physical body. And I feel like in order to be optimal and I guess operate more optimally and let in more light and connect to the higher dimensions, it's easier to do it when you're grounded in your own body.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
us neurodivergents definitely have an extreme, from my observation, extreme difficulty with being grounded. Again, it's like not
Hmm.
being safe in this physical form because we're not used to it. Like
Yeah.
I personally, I still have issues grounding my root chakra. Even though I ground to Mother Earth, I can feel there being space within my lower self. I, you know, it's the sternum, but the pelvic area, where there's just like
Yeah.
energy just not there. I'm not
Yeah.
fully in. Matter of fact, something that I am trying lately. So I'll put my hand here. So like if you touch this area, where your heart is, it gives you a feeling of safety. And I'll
Mm.
kind of say to myself, I'm safe, and then I'll say I'm safe, I'm protected, and what I'll visualize is like Archangel Michael is protecting me.
That's
And
funny. I do the same thing.
I do the same thing. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm safe and protected, and then I visualize Archangel Michael. Yeah. That's
And
funny.
then I'll add, and I'm guided. So then I'll visualize your guides, the team that
Yeah.
guides us through this life. So it's like, how, like, it's a good way, I feel like, to, and I feel myself kind of like, it's, I guess, something I'm developing in myself
Hmm.
recently. Just so, again, like putting my hand here, and this is I'm safe. It's feeling I'm safe. So holding myself here, and then this is saying I'm safe, I'm protected, and I'm guided, and just continue to repeat. And then like I'm feeling my energy kind of, go into that area. It'll take time to kind of, I guess, what's the word, wire my energy to continue to go that route and stay there,
Exactly.
safe. We gotta do what we gotta do.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Fine. Every little bit, every day, little bits help. And
Yes.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
is there anything else we could talk about when it comes to being on the spectrum? I know we kind of hit the very tip of the
Yeah, the tip of it. I think for now that's all I can think of. But I'm sure, like, after this, I will have more stuff to think about. Because I feel like always in hindsight, I'm like, oh, I should have talked about that or I should have talked about that, you know?
Oh, um, so here's another thing, actually, on this topic. So when it comes to being neurodivergent, um, you're kind of this weirdo, right? For the rest of society, you're kind of like this oddball, and a lot of times, uh, humans or children or even adults, they kind of can smell that you're different, or they can see that you're different, and they.
Really? Huh.
Do you have this experience at all?
So that's interesting because before I even knew like I was ADHD, I would just attract other people that were ADHD, and I'm like, why are all these ADHD people like attracted to me? Like I don't understand. And it's actually the same thing with a lot of my clients too. Like um, I'm pretty sure that almost all of my clients that I have right now, they're all women with ADHD.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, and that's not like something that I've just like advertised or, said that like, oh, I'm an ADHD coach. Like I've never said that, but I've just they're all my clients have ADHD. It's really really interesting. So it's kind of funny that you brought that up.
Wonder if it's just kind of like the first, or like the first of the sets of the first waves of people doing their work, and it's usually
Yeah.
on the spectrum. They're just like more like, well, shit, I need to fix myself. So like, I guess I could be there for others down the line, because we need,
Yeah.
eventually, I feel like we're gonna need a lot of healers. So they need to. Oh, so it makes sense, I guess, to me that people that are neurodivergent are the ones that are getting the healing first. But what I was talking about is more so, maybe it's just my experience, because I was autistic and so fucking weird. I was so fucking weird. So, a person like myself, just autistics in general, pretty much almost all of them get heavily picked on. Even um, what you call it, family members. Still this weird dynamic where you're just like, oh, you're too sensitive, da da da, and I don't know. It's just like this whole thing that we get traumatized more easily. Therefore, we develop all these mental issues that we
Mhm.
suffer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it because of like us being weird, there's just more like, well, you're weird, and I like, people feel like shit about themselves, so
Right.
on the weirdos of the world. Um, where was I going this? Well, I guess here's something that I usually when I talk about the subject, I like to mention. So I feel like it's interesting that the weirdos of the world, the, the neurodivergents, they're usually okay. So if you're in a tribe,
Yeah.
um, the ones that display being weird would be taken by the tribe shaman to teach how to do the work.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I've heard this. Mm-hmm.
so I guess further what I'm trying to say is usually these individuals in today's world, because we're so sensitive, develop all these other issues. And where does society throw people with issues into the mental hospital? I don't think it's
Mm.
a coincidence that I think the let's say the dark ones. I usually kind of talk about these subjects, but let's go ahead and put that out there. The dark ones know who the fuck starseeds are.
Mm-hmm.
Let's give them
Yep.
motherfucking labels.
Yep.
Oh, they're fucking crazy. Look at them. Let's lock them up.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Exactly. And
All the
it's
shamans in the world and lock them up.
yeah, because they know the power that they have to incite change and, create a new world. And so they don't want things to change. They don't want things to be different. And so they keep everybody that is different that will create that change. Let's just drug them up and, take away their power and call them crazy, and
Exactly.
then that way nothing can happen. It's like,
And we continue to sell chemicals to them to make them feel better.
yeah,
Well, thank you for the band-aid.
exactly. Exactly. Just another band-aid.
Yep. All right. So I feel like that was a good amount spent on my favorite subject. Let's move on. Um, so let's talk about the subconscious mind.
Okay. Um, I do have to say that I do have to go to an appointment in about like 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay.
Um, so just want to keep that in mind. Um,
So,
but yes, the the subconscious mind is fucking powerful as shit. It's what keeps all of our programmings, the things that we learn when we grow up, right? So let me back up. So we all have conditions and programs that our mind is running off of, and all of those conditions and programmings happen, from our upbringing, from trauma, from, sometimes generational trauma, through the media, through the television, stories, things that we see repeatedly, and when your subconscious mind has a program stored in it, your ego makes sure that you run based off of those programs. And so if you're programmed to believe that you're not worthy, all of your actions are going to match that narrative that you're not worthy, right? You're going to keep sabotaging your goals, and despite your best efforts to put your to achieve them. And if you think you're this outcast weirdo and that's the narrative in your mind, all of your behaviors, right, are going to reflect that. Like, I'm not worthy, I'm this outcast weirdo, so now my ego's going to uphold this story. But the thing is with, like, through things like hypnosis and NLP and different things, you can actually change that programming to create a better narrative, so that way you're not getting in your own way, or you're not getting in the way of your programming. And there's so much power in the subconscious mind, and it makes up, I'd say, probably like 80% of our decisions. Like, most of our decisions that we think are conscious are actually unconscious. And yeah, it's wild. It's wild.
yeah, absolutely. There's so much there, so much
Yes.
there. And I guess the body or the mind or the ego just wants to protect, not understanding that no, everything just needs to come up and be dealt with. That's it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
100%. And I know you do like the you do the QHHT, right? which deals a lot with the subconscious and
We're basically talking to the subconscious. I
yeah,
say that sometimes I say I'm talking to the soul. Like I'll say I'm talking to the subconscious, or I'll say I'm talking to the soul.
yeah,
Technically, and the ego gets kind of moved aside. So who am I
yep,
talking to? I'm directly talking to you.
yeah, yeah.
It's beautiful to me, just being able to
It's
kind of
super cool. Super cool.
everything's right there, just like, hey, we're good. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
let's talk about spiritual awakening.
yeah, yeah. So, as far as spiritual awakening goes, like I've had multiple awakenings. I feel like the thing with like the spiritual journey is, you have like your initial kind of awakening, and then as you progress through your journey, you have multiple awakenings, like because you're peeling back all these different layers. And so each layer that you peel back, you're this new version of yourself, and you're one step closer to being your true, authentic, like who you are at the core, light being
Yeah.
essence. And so, kind of like I've been through several. So I had my first, introduction when I was 12 and had the oracle cards. I would say in my earlier 20s, maybe like 21, I kind of had another awakening where I was getting more in tune with my spiritual gifts. And then kind of like 25, when I stopped, like I was trying not to party as much and trying to, break away some of those patterns. It's like that was another awakening. And then the one that happened in, you know, was it like 2019, 2020-ish, that was like a huge one. And so it's just like all these different layers of just like these different little bits of rebirths and deaths and cycles, because that's like life is very cyclical, right? We think that it's like linear, but it really just goes in cycles. And so yeah, it's quite the journey. Quite the journey.
It really is. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I felt like like I've gone through so many kind of like dark nights of the soul, whatever. And when when the lockdown thing happened, I definitely went through an awakening of what's going on in the world, and that was like,
Yes.
holy shit, that's like a different level of just like,
Yeah,
hello,
it's a
people.
whole nother level.
That's a big
Yeah.
shadow that I need to fucking integrate.
Mm. Yep.
That was hard.
Yep.
That was fucking hard. Like,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
the kids part.
It's a
I know,
lot.
whole other
It's
thing.
a lot. Yeah, that's I would say like that piece of it was probably one of the bigger pieces, because while I was open to like this spiritual nature, I wasn't as open to that part, like the conspiracies that you know what I mean, like how they label it. But like when you start digging and finding these like the proof almost behind some of this, and you really dig into it, like some of the darker stuff and like what's actually going on in the world, it's really it's it's wild.
And it's not like we're going into like one aspect and like like, oh, I believe this. It's just so many different
Connections.
connections,
Yeah.
stories, actual proof.
Yeah.
So it's just like, yeah, it's hard. Yeah, yeah. And just like lately, just a lot of crazy shit going on. But like, I'm just trying to kind of find myself in the zero point space. That's
Yeah.
not have my
Yeah.
emotions. Or it's not that I'm bypassing or ignoring. It's just I don't think uh, we are being productive by being manipulated by
Hmm.
people using our emotions.
Yep.
That's where I'm at.
Yep. a
So,
hundred percent
my love, I want to respect your time because you need to go, and I
Yeah.
also want to say I really appreciate you coming on. It was an
Yes,
absolute pleasure.
thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful. We had so many wonderful conversations, and Um, I'll have to have you on my podcast as well because there's a couple of things that I want to dive in deeper with you because there's so many like similarities in some of our journey, and there's also like a lot of differences, and I don't know, it's all very exciting.
Conversation soon enough.
Yes.
All right. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I will, well, first, how can people find you?
Oh yes, yes. So you can find me on Instagram, which is Taylor Aelina, TaylorAelina, and then the same thing on TikTok. And then my website is lovedbytheuniverse.com. And I actually have a free shadow work guide on there. So if you're interested in getting started in shadow work and you don't really know where to start, it's like a 70-page guide with like 30 plus journal prompts. There's a playlist, everything. So it's a good starting point for sure.
Beautiful. And may I ask you a couple questions real quick?
Yeah, of course.
So, first question, what is your opinion of what New Earth is?
New Earth. Huh? That's an interesting one. I feel like New Earth is basically just it's just okay, so you know how the goal with shadow work, right, is to peel back these different layers of the shadows and to get to the core essence of what our soul truly is. And I feel like that's kind of what true earth is. Like I feel like true earth is the core essence of what the energy of Mother Earth is, minus all of these shadows and traumas and things that have occurred because of humans, essentially, you know. And so it's just finding a new way to do things. It's finding a new way to live, to be that's more. I don't want to say productive, but it's just healthier. You know what I mean? Like it's a healthier way of living and being a human because obviously a lot of the stuff we're doing isn't working. So, you know, yeah, that's kind of like my general overview, but I can go into greater detail, you know.
If we had more time, I would, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to squeeze in as much as I can in a small amount of time. So the next question, if you have
Yes.
any advice for the humans out there listening to you, whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, yeah. So the advice I would give is just, a lot of us live in this like fear-based mindset, right? Or we sit in these lower frequencies, whether it's in that depressed, that anxiety, that whatever it is. Um, in order to really move through some of these tougher emotions, it's important to understand what story you're telling yourself about the anxiety or the depression that's attached to it, and also feel your damn feelings. Feel your damn feelings because the more you suppress them, the more you ignore them, the more you numb them and distract yourself from them, the more they're going to come back with fuller force and in ways that you're not going to be happy with. So it's uncomfortable, yes, but ultimately on the other side of feeling your feelings, there's so much freedom. There's so much more freedom. There's so much more happiness. There's so much more room to feel joy. There's so much more room to just be yourself. And I think when you allow yourself and give yourself permission to feel your feelings, it opens up a lot more doors. And it sounds so simple, but feeling your feelings is actually a lot harder than it sounds. So feeling your feelings isn't weak. Feelings and emotions aren't a weakness; they're actually a strength. And when you give yourself permission to do that, there's strength in that. There's a lot of strength in that.
Absolutely, I agree. I feel like it takes bravery to do it, guys.
Yeah.
Ready? No, let's be brave. Let's feel.
Yeah, let's be brave. Everyone's scared shitless of something, but people sometimes you have to do things scared. Just do it anyways. Look the fear in the face and be like, "Look, I see you. I know what you're trying to do right now, but I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna shake while I do it. I'm gonna maybe have some heart palpitations, you know? I'm gonna acknowledge they're there, but I'm just gonna fucking keep going. And that's how you make changes, you know? That's how change happens.
Yep. All right, my love. Go do your thing.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
everybody, for
much.
watching. Bye.
Bye.